IELTS Booster, Discover 4A. Hello,
Hi,
can you introduce yourself for me, please?
my name is Đặng Việt Anh. I'm from Discover 4A, and you can call me Vanh, VANH for short, or Việt Anh. And I'm from Vietnam, Hanoi, and I'm currently living in Hà Đông. And I'm an I'm an OGCC supporter, so I've learned here since I was 3 years old, and I'm currently 11 years old.
Okay, good, excellent stuff, brilliant. Okay, so this test is going to consist of 3 parts. The first part is going to involve me asking you some questions. The second part will involve you doing a little bit of note taking and then talking about a chosen subject. And the third part will include a little bit more critical thinking and answering some more questions. So the first part is about being patient. What do you do when you're waiting for something?
Well, usually when a person is waiting for something, what they usually do is fidgeting. So fidgeting is a form of action which they do something that can spend their time because they don't have nothing to do, like spinning the pen or clicking your finger, or just doing things to waste your time.
Okay. Let me ask that question one more time. Good answer, but just listen. What do you do?
Yeah, I do.
That's what you do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay, well done. Have you ever lost your patience?
Well, a lot.
Okay. Why do you lose your patience?
It's usually when I was young, because when you're older, you can wait a longer period of time. But when I was about 5 years old, I used to go to hospital, and I usually need to wait for like 2 hours or three or more, and it really is, and it is very hard to be patient, and I just go in, and I usually go nuts because I can't wait for that long period of time usually, and nowadays I can wait for a very long time, and I'm not impatient like I was when I was young.
Okay, so you wouldn't describe yourself as impatient at all. You would describe yourself as a patient person?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, now let's talk about your fellow countrymen. Let's talk about Vietnamese people. Do you think Vietnamese people are patient people?
Well, definitely not.
Okay, so why would you say that?
Because Vietnamese people are usually extrovert.
Okay, so how do you think that impacts them being patient?
Because usually being an introvert means that they don't talk much, and they just sitting here and they just think about things, and they can wait for a very long time. And an extrovert, they need to have social interaction, and when they wait, they just need to sit here, and it's very hard for them to wait for a very long time.
Okay, good answer, well done. Okay, so now we're going to move on to part 2. So part 2 is going to involve you with a little bit of note taking, so this is yours. Okay? If you need it, you can use it. If you don't want to, you don't have to. We're going to be talking about an interesting old object. Okay, so I want you to describe an interesting old object, or an old interesting object that your family has. Okay, I want you to tell me a few things. I want you to tell me what it is, where it came from, how long your family has to keep it, and explain why your family thinks the object is interesting. I'm going to give you 1 minute to write down what you want. Do you understand what I need you to do? Okay, Viet, your time starts now.
How about for how long?
1 minute, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1 minute. got 10 seconds. Okay. What can you tell me about this interesting old object that Anne has?
It is very old, and it's an ancient coin from the Nguyen dynasty.
Okay.
And now it could worth about like 1 million Vietnam dollar.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But now now my sister threw it away.
She threw it away?
Yeah.
Why did she throw it away?
Let's go back to the main topic.
Okay. Yeah.
And this coin is very old. It's about more than 100 years old.
Okay.
And it came from the Nguyen dynasty and from my ancestors.
Okay, so your ancestors had it for a long time.
Yeah, my great-great-grand.
Okay. Wow. Excellent stuff. Do you know how they got it? Do you know how?
Oh, it's a currency back then.
Oh, okay. So it was an old coin that you
Yeah.
used to use like 100
And,
or so years ago.
Yeah, and we also have a coin from when the French colonized Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah, that coin is made from silver.
Okay. Do you know where you got that?
It's also from my ancestors.
Okay. Good. Okay. Excellent. Well done. Okay. So now we're going to move on to part 3, which is the final part. This is quite a long part, though. So we're going to be talking about history. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to give me some reasons why people like to keep hold of things that remind them of the past. Why do you think people hold on to things?
History is very important because it is a part. It's like they are take. It's like how do I say? It's something to be remembered from the human race. So it's like the American Civil War. It's a very interesting time in the American history, and if we don't know that nowadays, it will be very different, and us humans will we can never be as developed as now.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question ever so slightly. Let's talk about your mum and dad with these coins. Why do you think they hold on to the coins?
Because this coin reminds me of my ancestors and know how do they live in the old days.
Okay, good, excellent. Can you suggest to me whether all historic buildings should be kept?
I think that we should place it where it should be. So, because it's a historical buildings, for example, and if we place it in a museum, it will lose its how it's supposed to be, and we cannot see it where it's supposed to be, and it will lose its value.
Values, fine word. Okay, let me put this another way. Let's talk about the Temple of Literature, for example. That's obviously a historic building in Vietnam. Do you think that all historic buildings in Vietnam should be kept, or do you think that some of them could be removed or broken down?
Some of them could be removed or broken down.
Why do you think that?
Because the war affected it.
Okay.
And war is a part of history. And if and war can affect history a lot. And because of that, many buildings some of them can be lost or broken.
Okay. Can you tell me whether some objects made in the past are better than modern ones?
Yes.
What ones and why?
Like the Babylon Garden
Okay.
because it's the architecture,
Okay.
and they can build a large waterfall, and it will transfer water to the whole building, and it's a really interesting thing.
Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about museums. What types of museums do you know we have in Vietnam?
The Hanoi Museum,
Okay.
the Art Museum, and yeah, that's all.
Okay. So, what kind of museums do you think are best in teaching people about history or about the past?
I think historic music,
Okay. And why do you think that?
and because I think it's because these museums show us the past, our lives in the past, and it's very interesting, and we could see how far we've done nowadays, and because of that, it's one of the most interesting museums in my opinion.
Okay, nice. Let's talk about that museum. How do you think what could it do to attract more tourists and people to it?
They could take more artifacts because people like to see things by with their eyes, and not in just papers. So usually museums with more artifacts usually gets more tourists than museum with just papers and letters writing on.
Good, excellent stuff. And that concludes the video test.